and then went to the next branch. And then, and I remember being very nervous about it because I was very conscious that we needed receipts and we needed to be accountable. And they were the road captains that went out and bought whatever supplies, fuel. I believe some of that went to fuel. And when they brought the receipts back, there was actually extra money in the kitty.
So when you're talking about road captains, are you talking about the $13,000 that wasn't for the first two bulk fuel purchases you
That's
had?
correct, yes.
And am I understanding you correctly that money was distributed to the road captains?
I believe so. I didn't keep it. I had 10 million problems of my own, so I didn't want to be handling any of the cash. So I think I gave it to Chris, and then Chris distributed it to the road captains from there to provide fuel.
And the $10,000 that was used for the one bulk fuel purchase, do you recall where you purchased the fuel from?
I believe it was a company called fillerup.ca.
And there was also a $3,000 fuel purchase. Do you recall?
Yeah, that went to Adam something, who was with the Quebec, the Quebec part of the convoy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name.
That's okay. After the fuel was purchased, how was it distributed?
The fuel?
Yes.
That I left up to the professionals.
Did you, through dealing with the professionals, did you come to have any understanding of how they distributed the fuel?
I'm assuming with a fuel bulker of some sort, or I honestly don't know.
And when you're talking about the professionals, who are you referring to?
The truck drivers.
Was there anyone in particular, or any people in particular, who were responsible for overseeing the logistics of distributing fuel?
We did have a few volunteers that came on board. There was a gentleman that was there for the first, I think he was there for the first week, who looked after that. And then he had to leave, and another gentleman stepped in and took it over, who was from Alberta, Calgary, I believe. And then another gentleman from Ontario that assisted.
And who were those gentlemen?
The first one, I believe, was Joey Mitsu, M-I-Z-U. Tihan, I'm sorry, I don't know his last name. He was from Calgary. And then John Skubik, who was from Ontario.
What happened to the receipts that the captains returned?
I have them in an envelope in my room. They were scanned and sent. I believe Aga Chipiak had scanned them, and there was one of the road captain's uncle was here, so he created a spreadsheet so that we could keep track of all of them also.
If we could go to GFM 156. So this is a GoFundMe attestation letter. Are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
Can you describe what this document is and what its purpose was?
I don't really remember the details. Is it okay if I read it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks to me they just wanted confirmation on where the funds were going and how they would be distributed.
But and the clerk has scrolled down now, and what I want to ask you about is, it says, with the oversight of the Finance Committee, I will execute the following plan to meet the stated purpose of the fundraiser and distribute the funds raised and released to me, and then it sets out a process. Do you see that there?
I do, sir.
Do you recall making this form of commitment to GoFundMe?
I do, yeah.
And it's our understanding that GoFundMe sought this sort of commitment as part of the ongoing discussion about whether or not it would release the funds. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe they were trying to do their due diligence.
And you see here it sets out a process. Funds will be distributed via e-transfer directly from the TD Unlimited checking account, established in my name to individual convoy participants. Participants must submit their own convoy registration forms, fuel receipts, and verification for their participation from the road captain. To that, participant registration is verified by the respective road captains upon demonstration of completion, receipts, and confirmation of the journey to Ottawa. and reimbursement amounts will be calculated at an estimated rate of 62 cents per kilometer driven. Do you see that?
I do, sir.
So this attestation, it appears, was contemplating how people would be reimbursed on their way to Ottawa. Is that right?
Yes.
Was any similar plan made for disbursements once the convoy was in Ottawa?
Well, I guess what the finance committee we decided to do was obviously come up with registration forms because we felt that that was really important, and a code of conduct also. And that is based off of the calculations that the finance committee had come up with to pay them for. So when it was not anticipated how large this was going to grow, I thought e-transfers would be a very easy way to disperse the money, and that's what the registration was for, so that we would have their contact information and their email addresses in order to make that happen.
So my question was with respect to distribution. Once you were in Ottawa, was the plan to use the registration forms once money was distributed in Ottawa as well?
It was. That was the plan.
Did you follow that plan?
Well, we didn't need to because the funds were frozen. And
what about for the $26,000?
I'm sorry?
What about for the $26,000?
Oh, that was from the e-transfer money, not the GoFundMe money.
So the GoFundMe money, you had a distribution plan, but for the e-transfer money, you did not?
That's correct.
Did you consider having a distribution plan for the e-transfer money?
At that point, I had handed over everything to the finance committee because once Mr. Barber and I got on the road, I was quite busy doing other things. So my communications with them were quite quick, and I trusted them. I trusted that they knew what they were doing, and yeah.
And while you may have turned things over to the finance committee, it's the commission's understanding, again from testimony and documents that we've read, that you became the person associated with the GoFundMe campaign and the person associated with the $10+ million. Was that your experience?
Yes.
What impact did that have on you?
Well, it was incredibly, again, it was an incredible responsibility, and again, I wanted to always be as open and transparent about it as possible, which is why I started doing the lives so that I could let people know, what was happening. That the finance committee has been formulated and try and do little updates on what we were achieving at that point.
Did you get a lot of questions about the money and what you were planning to do with it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, everybody wanted to know about the money.
Did you get a lot of people approaching you and asking you if they could have some of the money?
I did, yes.
And Mr. Eros, who we've spoken about, had an interview with the commission, and he said that at some point after February 1st, he spoke with you on the phone, and you told him that you were feeling overwhelmed because a lot of people were circling you and asking for money, and he said that you called them vultures in a text message.
Yeah, that's how I didn't mean they were vultures. I just felt like the vultures are circling.
How did you handle having all these people circling around you and seeking money?
The best I could. I created a finance committee to ensure that the money that was donated was protected and that I was protected. And I just wanted, I don't know, I just put one foot in front of the other, and I would just explain that I was not in a position, like, this was not my money to give out. And that we needed to, the money was primarily, like it said in the GoFundMe campaign, primarily for it was for the truckers for fuel, food, and lodgings if needed. And so I couldn't buy hot dogs. I didn't feel like buying a sound system for $150,000 was appropriate when I couldn't get money out to give to the truck drivers. So I had a lot of people coming at me, and my hands were tied. At one point, I had somebody threatening that they were going to get a lawyer to come after me for the money, which was kind of ridiculous because that was really at that point just going to tie it up even longer.
I'm going to now ask you some questions about the organization of the Freedom Convoy. First question for you is, at the time, did you see yourself as one of the founders of the convoy?
A supporter.
Who did you see as the founders?
Mr. Barber and Miss Belton.
Did you view Mr. King or Mr. Bowder as founders of the convoy?
I did not.
When you joined, were you aware that they had been assisting in planning and promotion of the convoy?
I found out, and I can't recall if it was in my initial discussion with Mr. Barber or the next day. It would have been either the 13th or the 14th that I found out that they were involved, but I don't remember exactly which date.
I appreciate that you saw yourself as a supporter and not one of the founders. Did you come to see yourself as one of the leaders of the convoy?
I came to see myself as part of a team. And maybe it was because of the GoFundMe that my name was on, or maybe it was because of the live videos that I was doing. I felt I was perceived as that, but all I wanted to do was help.
Did you see yourself as having any say greater than anyone else on the team?
I did not.
And who did you see as the members of that team?
Obviously, Miss Belton and Mr. Barber. The road captains, Joe Jansen, Miranda Gassier, Ryan Mihilowitz, Dale Enns, Sean Thiessen. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone.
So, when Mr. Wilson described you as an organic leader, do you agree with that statement?
I guess that's what I alluded to with my previous answer.
Right. And what I understood from your previous answer is that you were seen as the leader, but you yourself didn't feel that you were the leader.
Absolutely not.
Chris Barber in his testimony discussed that there was power struggles among the organizers. Was that something you observed as well?
It was, and I think when you have any type of organization, there's always power struggles involved, and ours was no different.
What power struggles did you observe?
I saw what I perceived was, people, organizations coming in, perhaps trying to take over, or I hate to use the word take over, but I believe that they were all there with the same goals that we had. It's just that maybe some had different agendas, or were looking to possibly promote their own brand. There was obviously, I had a lot of people coming up to me as we were just talking about, telling me what I needed to do with the money, should do with the money, could be doing with the money, what I had to do, and it was very overwhelming.
What were some of the people or groups that were doing that?
The first one that I was concerned about was an organization called Taking Back Our Freedoms. And I felt, again, that they were there with the right end goal in mind. I remember they showed up with bags of swag. All of a sudden, I was getting pulled into meetings with, I believe it was Give, Send, Go, because we were looking at, there had been obviously problems starting with GoFundMe, and we weren't sure what was going to happen, and so I honestly I remember being in meetings and conference calls, and I really didn't even know what was going on, and I had a discussion with Mr. Eros after one of those, and he was concerned.
When you talk about bags of swag, and that was is that a case where you were concerned that, well, then the group might have had the same goals, they were seeking a promotional opportunity? Is that what you're referring to?
Essentially.
Right. Did you have concerns that there were other groups or individuals who were seeking to use the the mass media coverage, and the $10 million as a way to promote themselves instead of focus on the cause?
Not that I can think of offhand now.
Did you ever turn your mind to whether or not this was acting as a promotional opportunity for yourself?
Absolutely not. I never in a million years saw this coming. I never had an agenda. I literally just wanted to help some truckers drive across Canada and stand in front of Parliament with some signs. That was literally what I had envisioned.
So the commission understands that you participated in a press conference on February 3rd, 2022. Mr. Wilson also attended. Do you know which conference I'm referring to?
I do.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you some questions about that conference in a second, but first, I just want to understand when you first met Mr. Wilson.
They flew in on the evening of the 2nd of February, I believe, and it was quite late at night when they arrived. They came to, I think I was still at the Ark Hotel at that point, and they came up and introduced themselves. There was five lawyers, I believe, that showed up, and that's when I first met them.
And how did it come about that the convoy was looking for a lawyer?
Well, I know that there was a doctor that was in Ottawa with us that was quite concerned, I believe, about what he was seeing from these organizations that were coming in. And if I remember correctly, he's the one that set up a call with the JCCF.
Sorry, who was that doctor?
Dr. Francis Christian.